Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sip and Grow with Bookie podcast. And today I am excited. I have with me Laolu Dada. Laolu is the COO of Niyo Group. Laolu is passionate about women in technology. She's passionate about excellence. She's passionate about so many things. So I don't want to say too much. And I'll ask Laolu to introduce herself and tell us a bit more about Niyo Group and what they do.
Sure. Hi, everyone. As Buki said, my name's Laolu Dada and I'm the COO of Niyo Group. And Niyo is a group of brands that build technology to economically empower Black women, but women in general. So we started off teaching women how to braid hair, actually.
Wow.
Running workshops, teaching women how to braid hair.
I'm going to hold that for a moment, that thought for a moment. Okay. So just carry on.
For like 5 years ago. And then for us, the mission has always been to economically empower Black women. And as we grew as businesswomen, we were like, why are we the only ones in the room? So we started running conferences and events to basically teach women how to upskill themselves, how to empower themselves with the information to start their own business or become better professionals. And along the journey, we have split into a hair and beauty brand. So we recently opened an AR powered salon. Wow. So we use technology to help women select the best styles. And then we also have a bootcamp brand where we actually train women in emerging technologies, learning how to become better professionals so that they can position themselves, because the tech industry basically has no Black women, just like less than 3%. So it's low. And then we're also building an edtech platform, so where you're rewarded with money or currency for learning. So that is on the blockchain. It's going to be in the Web3 space. So we do a lot.
You sure sound like you do a lot. And I'd say, as a woman in technology myself, or maybe was in technology, and to be fair, some of the things you're saying, I don't fully understand or grasp them.
Yeah.
Right. So for the purpose or the benefit of our audience and myself, right, you mentioned hair and technology, like that doesn't marry up in my brain. How did you come about the whole, like what was your inspiration? And can you explain a bit further about, okay, what is hair and technology doing together? Like, how do I need technology to choose my hairstyle? Like, I honestly don't get it.
So let's backtrack. 2020, we're in the pandemic. Initially, our hair and beauty service was just a mobile hair stylist service. So we had about 10 hairdressers within East and West Midlands, and we just...
So is this like an app where you're providing
Not
a
really.
mobile...
People were just reaching out to us. They're like, hey, I see your pictures on Instagram. I want to get my hair done. And so we learned a lot about our customers, and we also learned that, you know, when Black women want to get their hair done, they want it done today, latest tomorrow. And, you know, for the stylist, there was a lot of, you know, admin that goes into it, forgetting to respond to DMs and all of these things. So we learned a lot just about both customer bases. And what we discovered is that we could use technology, build a platform to help support both sides. So for, you know...
So you're supporting the stylist and then the also, consumer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the consumer, you know, sometimes you want to try a hairstyle, but then you're not sure it will suit you. So you're looking at pictures and you know, in the worst case scenario, you take it to your hairstylist and she does it for you. You absolutely hate it. Yeah. So we wanted to basically build technology that enables you to see what that style looks like on you before actually paying for it, because that's a big deal for us. And then we also have built an administrative system that really supports stylists and trains them, because a lot of Afro hairstylists are actually kind of self-taught, and Afro hair in the UK is actually very much unregulated. So if you go to college to study hairdressing, you will learn how to do Caucasian European hair, and they have like 1 or 2 modules on Afro hairstyling, and they still put relaxers in there, but not many Black women are still relaxing their hair, so it's kind of outdated. We're working with a lot of like governing bodies to see how we can actually certify and accredit Afro hairstylists with curriculum so that they can be professionals. So we do a lot.
Yeah.
I think that the goal is to
I
be
can
disruptive.
understand the challenge that you would face when it comes to Afro hairstyling, because there's so many varieties of different hair texture types. There's like, yeah, it's unbelievable. Sometimes, even sort of within families, right? I think my hair is sort of finer, thinner,
Yeah.
and then my sister's like the opposite. So I can totally understand, and I don't know. Well, I guess I wish you the best of luck in solving that
you.
problem. But I
Thank
think
you.
it's quite a complex, and the field and the subject of hair anyway with Africans, and yeah, it's quite, because even on the continent of Africa, if you look at the variety of people that we have, it's interesting. I think it's quite an inexhaustible
Yeah.
in some way, shape,
We're
or
very
form.
diverse, and
Yeah.
and it shows when it comes to hairstyles, because it's not just a wash, a cut, and a blow
Yeah.
dry. It's finger coils, it's a jerry curl, it's a relaxer, it's twists, braiding, you name it, weaves, wigs, the whole thing. So it's
And I
very
like
very diverse.
all the concepts you mentioned about sort of seeing the hairstyle before you decide. I would love to experience that, because to be fair, I think I have some stereotypes, and I'm sure most people will know me. I look the same way. If you've seen me like 3 years ago, actually, when did we meet? Like
We met in Dubai.
Dubai, 2001,
22.
22, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I look almost the same as you've seen me.
Yeah.
So people are like, okay, you wear the same hairstyle. I'm like, you know what? I'm used to it. Like, I always believe that this part suits me, and that's it. Like, and I stick to it, right? But perhaps maybe if I'd been shown, or there's a technology that can show me other ways I could look and not risk, that's amazing. So yeah, well done on that.
Thank you. So that's how hair and technology are coming together. Imagine like a Snapchat filter, but just more developed and
Yeah.
Afro hair.
Oh, interesting. Well done. I think I'll maybe take it back a little bit to your background in terms of, because I'm kind of seeing the Laolu now, all the many things you're doing, the boot camps, trainings, and all of this support for women. And, I'm just trying to marry up the relationship in terms of, okay, how you grew up, what your interests were growing up, your passion, and how we sort of got up to this point that we're here today.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. How far back do you want to go?
Well, as far back, because to be honest, I think sometimes those memories of even primary school, you may already have had that budding interest, in women or in technology at that point in time. Maybe you might have not recognized it, but I think it's just interesting to see that, evolution or that growth, because obviously on this podcast, we talk about growth in terms of how people have evolved over the years. So I think it's quite an interesting perspective.
No, I love that. I think for me, it was quite interesting because I was talking about this on my YouTube platform as well. And I was saying how from like 5, 6, my dad's older brother, who's kind of like my grandpa because he raised him, he always used to call me his landlady and I would call him my tenant because he felt like I was very outspoken and I was very bossy. And obviously if you're especially in the UK, you're a young black girl, very outspoken, kind of bossy, whatever that means, you're definitely destined for greatness, right? But no, I think I had a lot of kind of internal struggle because I didn't know when I was talking too much and when I wasn't. And on top of that, I think people around me noticed, or naturally people would kind of follow my lead. So I'm not really a commander type of personality, but I'm very collaborative. I like pulling people in and working with people, and I've been like that from young. So I guess when I look back now, it's no surprise that I'm a leader in a certain capacity. But I think when I was much younger, I cared about nice things. I liked nails,
The good things
and
of life.
hair. I'm very much a girly girl, even till this day. So I guess that followed me. And then when it came to university, people are always surprised about this because I work in tech. I actually went to university to become a social worker. Yeah. So
Interesting.
I wanted to become a social worker because I was really passionate about helping people, but I yeah, I just wanted to help people and I felt like that was the way
The
to
good
do
way
it.
to do it, yeah.
And I didn't know about all the other career paths that you could kind of take. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to become a social worker. And then second year, I was like, this isn't how I want to help people.
So you actually studied or went to university to study to
Yeah.
become a social worker. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like you were thinking of it.
No, I
Oh,
actually started the journey.
interesting.
And then second year, I was like, this isn't how I want to help people because I felt like there were a lot of restrictions. While you can help people, you know, there are guidelines and laws and legislation. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I finished my degree. And instead of taking my master's to specialize in social work, I decided to just intern. So I was interning in a youth organization, and I was doing social media, I was designing graphics. And even on that journey, I was kind of praying. I was like, God, help me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I kind of became really interested in social entrepreneurship, business with impact. And I was kind of really inspired by, because I was in Birmingham I was in Nottingham, but I was close to Birmingham at that time. And I learned about the story of Cadbury and how, you know, it wasn't just about providing chocolate for the world. He would build, you know, affordable housing for his workers that was safe and you know, it was sanitary, because at that time there were a lot of issues. People were dying from disease and disease spread. So I really liked the idea of making lots of money, but also having
Who doesn't like the idea of making money?
You know, I like the idea of you know, a mission and a lot of social impact in the process, because to me it didn't make sense to be doing so much or to have a brand that's rising and becoming successful, but then yeah so that became something that I identified with, and I kind of held it and put it in my back pocket, like, okay, I like mission, I like making sure that there's an impact whatever I'm doing. And then I discovered that, well, as I mentioned earlier, I liked looking nice.
Still do.
I still do. And then finally, I just wanted to be able to use my creative skills. At that time, it was borderline marketing skills. So I kind of created this list of 3 things. And I said, you know, whatever I do, I want to look good doing it. I want to be creative and I want to be able to help people. Fast track, I had a friend at university and she was a part of Enactus, which is, I don't know if you know about, it's basically like a society, but they have it in different universities where you develop business skills and you try, you basically compete against each other to build really productive and effective business ideas.
Okay.
So
do you get like a, you know, one of those Dragon Den
yeah,
type
it's
where
kind
you
of like
present
that.
and
Yeah, and they have like an annual event and things like that. But she was a part of that, and she was building like this kind of social impact kind of business idea, and I was like, oh, I like that. And we would talk about, you know, what it would mean to provide economic empowerment for women, because actually I believe it was the McKinsey report of 2019. They basically predicted that by 2030 between 60 million to 140 million women would either be displaced or have to move into technological roles, because currently they don't occupy those kind of roles.
Yeah.
So that's a massive displacement for many people, and I'm sure it's even increased now with AI and things like that. So she was like, do you want to come on board and help me build this business? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
That's
so
nice.
That's actually how I got involved with Niyo. And then from there, we have just grown exponentially. So we started off with events and hair braiding workshops. And then we realized our mission was to economically empower Black women. But, you know, there's only so much you can do when you're doing hair. There's only so much social mobility you would experience. And so after that, we were like, what's the next thing? Coding, tech. So we upskilled ourselves, and then we ran a boot camp for 50 women in 2020 when people were not sure if they were going to keep their jobs or things like that. And we will never do a cohort that big again because it was crazy. But it was truly, it was life-changing because we had entered in for a contract with local government, West Midlands Combined Authority. We won £250,000.
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
we were like, okay, let's do this, you know.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So in terms of the impact or social impacts, you know, which obviously is a great thing. So, and how you run, are you running as like a social enterprise?
No.
Not for profit?
No, we're actually a for-profit company.
Oh, wow. So this is kind of like your, what do they call it now? Your social responsibility or corporate responsibility on the side of being a profitable business.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
And I think that, so initially when we started out, a lot of people were like, oh, it sounds like a charity or social enterprise. And because we were dealing with, you know, a lot of corporate directors and executives, and we didn't like how that felt because, you know, because we want to empower Black women doesn't mean it's charitable, you know. So we kind of we did a lot of thinking and we changed our language, and so that's why I said women, but you know, bottom line is we want to help Black women. But, you know, for us, social impact is woven into what we do. So we want to become a company with a quadruple bottom line, which basically means that, you know, we're passionate about purpose, about people, about climate or sustainability, and then also profit. So profit is very important because that drives the business. And I think oftentimes, especially Africans and Black people, when we build businesses, we want to have social impact. But if your company's not making profit,
it's much harder.
No, you're not.
I would want to have social impact, but
exactly.
Well,
so
not there yet.
We've learned along the way how to better position ourselves in the market, and the bottom line is just adding value to consumers.
Oh, that's interesting. So when you were growing up, or I guess even sort of like through uni and up until where you are now, did you have like a mentor or someone that you felt like, you know what, this person helped me through this journey? And, you know, of course, I know, and I would imagine you support and mentor other women, but what is that, you know, what's your thoughts around the whole mentorship thing? I know some people feel like, you know, rather a coach than a mentor. Like, what's your belief system and what's helped you in that sort of space on your journey?
I am a fan of whatever helps you get to where you need to go. If it's a coach, if it's a mentor. But do you know what? Funny enough about my journey, I think that I'm very much the product of having really ambitious peers. And I think that on a peer level, that's kind of where I received most of my mentorship. Especially until I had the money and the resources and the social network to actually access the kind of mentors that could help me to the next stage. I held onto the people that were doing things, that were going places. Not everyone, because, you know, but I look out for those things. I look out for innovation. I look out for people who want to see more than just, you know, living, we don't call it the American dream, but, you know, working a nice
English
9 to 5, working a nice 9 to 5, and, you know, having, exactly. I looked out for more than that. So I had a lot of that in my circle of friends, and that helped me to a certain level. But then, as I grew as a business leader, and I was quite young when I was a CEO, when I became COO. So
how young, if you don't mind?
I think, when did I become COO? I shouldn't tell her age, but I started off as the CMO, and then I wasn't really doing that great. That's a good story to tell, though.
What is, okay, I know we're using all these acronyms, and I always like to
Chief Marketing Officer.
Yeah. What is a CMO?
So
what is a COO? Because I know I used that at the very start, but
Yeah.
tell us
So
what that means.
I started off as a chief marketing officer,
Okay.
leading the company's campaigns, and the thing is, I had a lot of experience with design and creativity and a level of understanding about social, but then I couldn't. I feel like I had a lid, and I didn't know how to take it further, so I just sidestepped. I had a conversation with the CEO, who's also my friend, and she was like, I feel like you have really strong operational strengths. You're a great planner, project manager, and all of those things. So, like, we need this position. What about becoming the chief operations or operating officer? So that's what COO means. So now I oversee the group's activities so the operations, how we sell, everything from the smallest activity to the high level activity. I oversee that and the schedules for it. I'm like the chief whip. They bring me in to get stuff done. That's what I say.
That's good.
Yeah. But going back, I became COO when I was about 24, 25. So I'm talking to other COOs and they're like in their 40s. And, there's a bit of a language barrier because they're very experienced. And I'm literally working in this startup and we're scaling, we're making millions of pounds and, it's all happening very fast. Yeah. So I'm trying to learn and I realized that actually you don't know anything. And the moment I realized I don't know anything was when I actually started learning. And that's a big thing, especially for people in my generation, because I think we kind of like to assume that we know.
We know.
But we don't. You don't.
Yeah.
And I also think that mentors aren't just for learning. I think there's so much, even if your mentor can't teach you much, sometimes they're connected to the people that can.
Yeah.
And that's what's beneficial. But it shouldn't just be about, what can I get from you? I think it's about adding value to the person that you're getting mentorship from as well. Yeah. And initially, I did have coaching from Daniela Genus. She's amazing. Plugging her.
That level, because the truth is with coaching, like most people can't afford coaching and that's the facts of life, right?
Yeah.
So as much as you see all this amazing coaches out there, but when the business isn't profitable enough to run itself properly, then literally saying I'm going to hire a coach tomorrow, it's like mission impossible. But I like something you mentioned earlier about having peers that were quite ambitious and all of that. I think that's key. That's really valuable. And I think I would say in my personal journey as well, I think I'm inspired by a lot in a lot of ways, even much more by my peers than people who have gone ahead. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, I look up to those who've gone ahead, but I think sometimes having that pair mentoring, that pair sort of, just hand holding each other goes a long way. And to that, I say sometimes that if you have to change those pairs where possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Please do. And the reason I say that is, okay, I grew up in northern Nigeria, did my university in Ilorin. I was born in Kaduna.
Wow. Okay.
And then I did my university in Ilorin, and obviously was there for quite some time. And I remember there was a time that my sister was working in Ilorin, and I kept saying to her, like, babe, you need to leave this city. Not because I'm not saying there's anything bad with Ilorin, but the thing is, because of where she was working, like I think she had like a typical government job. The Nigerian feel, right, with the government job, it's a bit laid back. Even if you're ambitious, even if you're thinking big and all of these things, and consistently you're just in this laid back, comfortable environment, there's nothing gonna, like, you just be comfortable and you be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with being content, But I think sometimes getting to that point whereby you're seeking more, you're desiring more, and sometimes even if you don't see it, if you're in a different environment, it helps. And fast forward now, my sister's relocated to the UK. Her way of thinking,
her work ethic,
it's changed.
Yeah,
it's changed, honestly.
The environment,
and it's the environment. And to be fair, I could see it from the outside. Then I'm like, babe, you need to get over here.
Yeah.
But the thing is, she couldn't just jump out of the environment. But I think also in the long term, people, like, if we can all think about, am I too comfortable here? what's my next level? How do I grow myself, to become better? Anyway,
No, I
that's
have
me
a question.
digressing.
No, but I
Yeah,
have
go
a question off what you said, because I think that some people don't realize when they are complacent. So like, how would you advise someone to in the process of them identifying whether they're complacent or not? Because
I think, okay, there's that thing about the Gen Z sort of staying in the job for like, um
2
I
years and
remember
move on.
no, not even there was this event we had at work, and it was Anne Marie Imafidon that came
Oh,
to
okay,
speak.
yeah.
And there was a statement she made around Gen Z people, like they're in the job for like 2 months and they're out. I know it was a bit of an exaggeration, but I could get her message in terms of what she was trying to say, because we're like so short, I don't know, attention span, in this generation. But I think, how do you recognize the complacency? It's just comfort. I'm not saying be uncomfortable all the time, but I know within myself in some areas of my life where I'm being complacent and I'm comfortable and I'm chilling, I'm like having fun. And there is nothing wrong with that. But does it align with your long-term vision, your long-term goal? If it doesn't, then, even if we think about like things like fitness, right? If you're doing the same sort of exercise routine every single time, like coaches or fitness coaches will advise you, okay, change it up, do this, do that, because it's about that change, that evolution, continual learning. And for me, I felt complacent maybe over the past, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years, right? And this podcast is one of the things, like, what, we could get out of your comfort zone, because I would make excuses like, I'm okay, I'm a mom, I'm this, I'm that, I'm too busy, I don't have the time. But is this part of my long-term vision? Why am I doing this? One of it is to inspire other people about growth journeys of, people like yourself, personal stories. You don't have to be, I don't know, 50 years old to achieve what you want to achieve. Right. And you've shown that example. Yeah. Now, I'm going to digress a bit now into the subject of sobriety, which is one of the messages I'm also trying to get out in this whole podcast thing, right? You don't have to be a social or a heavy drinker to conform in this generation. You don't have, I just feel that we're all different in different ways, and whatever makes us different and unique, identifying those things and hopefully taking advantage of them, like leveraging on the positives rather than negatives, right? I feel like I'm preaching the message.
I keep preaching. It's good.
Because I'm slowly looking at myself like, oh, there are all these negatives, but no, I don't want to focus on negatives. Yes, I can work on improving them, but I want to leverage on the positives. Yeah. I noticed that, I like to have a conversation like this. Yeah. If there wasn't a mic here, even before we started, I remember we were just talking, because I want to learn. I want to hear your perspective. And I just want to see a different perspective from mine. Yeah. Because sometimes you don't even know you're complacent because you're so sort of, you've got this tunnel vision, like, okay, this is all I see, this is what I do all the time. You don't even know that something else exists outside of that. Yeah. But until you meet people, engage with people, you're just never going to know. Yeah. If I hadn't met you in Dubai, we wouldn't be here today. No, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If we never spoke as well.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. And also, I think at that time you had a stall. Yeah. And you were marketing.
I was promoting the product.
Yeah. And I think that is essentially, people open up your world.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
They open up your perspective, your level of understanding. And sometimes, if you are in a place where you can pretty much predict what the people around you would think or say, then you probably need to expand your circle. Yeah.
And be intentional about it. Yeah. I know it's easier said than done. And trust me, when I hear people or even someone to say, oh, networking, this, that, I try sometimes. Sometimes I can't be bothered. But I think for me is, if I even go somewhere, if I go into a room, even if it's one person that I connect with genuinely, then that's enough for me. I'm not trying to...
You don't need the whole world. Because some people are, you can pay them for networking.
I know we've said this a million times, with just that one trip, right? There's a few people that can say, what, on the back of this trip, I connected with genuinely. And there's some people I met that, there's just no connection. So I think naturally, some of those relationships we build organically, and I think it's better we let it build organically. I'm not the best with relationships and like phone calls and text and all of that.
Me either.
But but I know, like, you know, even with my friends, like, okay, I've got you, you've got me. Like, we may not speak every single day, but at least let it be an organic, genuine relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so fast forward to my what's it called? Question.
Yes. True.
What is your relationship with alcohol?
Okay.
Past, current, and we don't know what the future holds, but yeah.
Okay, so this is quite an interesting one. I actually,
as a bus woman, like you're going to all these events and things.
it's interesting. I started drinking alcohol kind of young.
Okay.
I'm not really proud of it. But
I think it's a bit of a norm though in the UK.
yes, definitely.
I didn't know that until I
You came
relocated.
here, yeah.
I think in Nigeria, growing up in Kaduna, it wasn't
not even a
it's not
culture.
common thing for a girl to drink alcohol. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
So I started drinking. I think like Mom, I'm sorry.
Mommy. We're letting the cat out of the bag.
40.
Okay.
But here's the thing. So my parents, especially my dad, God bless his soul, like he was very intentional about making sure that the world wasn't going to expose us to stuff before he did. So he was like adamant about if you want to drink alcohol, it's here that you try it. It's
Try
not
here and now. Not
it's
that
when
one
you're
boyfriend
outside
of
that
yours
someone
gets
will
you
give
drunk.
alcohol, you don't know how to hold your liquor. So already I think that they were quite open like that, and they would host people. So there was alcohol in the house, and I think they weren't like massive drinkers, but they're social drinkers.
Yeah.
So they like wine and stuff like that. So yeah, I would try some. It wasn't that nice, but you know. And then fast track, I think when I turned 18, that's the legal age in the UK
You're
for
like,
our international viewers. My sister took me out, and I think we went to a bar, and she gave me, or she bought me, I don't
Your
even
first
remember.
shots, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't a shot, it was a cocktail, and I think it was, I don't even remember
Like
what it
now
was.
that you're 18.
Yeah, you know,
Enjoy.
enjoy yourself. But it was so strange because I also became a Christian at quite a young age as well. So then I felt like this internal war, like, oh, should I be drinking? Is this something that Christians should do? Blah, blah, blah. And I think after that, and then going to university, it just wasn't a desire. It wasn't really my thing, and I didn't find myself in social circles where I had to drink. So even if people were drinking around me, there was no pressure to say, yeah. You know, people would ask me, oh, why don't you drink? And that would also open up like an avenue for conversation about why I chose not to, about faith, all of these things. But it just ended up not being a thing that I
Fancied, I guess.
yeah, that I explored that in too much depth. And I think also it wasn't for me. And on top of that, alcohol doesn't even taste that nice. Me personally. Like the wine, I think the only thing that I would say is kind of nice is Disaronno, but that's only when you mix it with something. So
Or the Baileys. I know like a lot of women drink Baileys. at
okay, a lot of
parties.
people like Baileys as well. I don't even like Baileys. I think even the ice cream is a bit gross, but anyway. So now fast track when I'm networking, and also the tech scene's kind of interesting because it's like, it's kind of corporate, but it's also a bit relaxed. So people are like, oh, you know, let's get some beers. And I'm just like, I mean, I'll get an orange juice and you can get beer. And I think that it's still the same conversation. People, you know, when people ask you, oh, would you like a drink? And you just kind of decline. There isn't too much tension around it. But I do think that, especially in the business world, there is an expectation that you participate, even if you're not going to. So, for example, if everyone's going to the pub, you can go, and like I would go. I never had a problem going to a pub, but I'm not going to drink because I don't like beer, and you know, this place kind of smells funky, but you know, I'm here with an intention in mind. I'm here to make sure that I'm positioned in a way that is favorable. So when you're thinking about what projects to work on, you're thinking about myself. So that's how I see it. I don't drink. I take a mocktail. I love a good mocktail, but really it's just sugar and juice. So even then,
Oh my
we shouldn't
god,
be drinking those.
you're literally like, I guess to be fair, it's kind of like a perception because
Yeah.
I preach mocktails, I preach sobriety, but again, I think one of the messages that I guess educating people and trying to get out there is that your mocktail doesn't have to be juice.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be sugar.
Yeah.
And fast forward now, there's all these companies who have, even the big companies and the smaller new companies who are creating products that are as sophisticated, so to say, as the alcoholic variant. Yeah. And take, for example, maybe gin, right? You have 0% gins nowadays.
Yeah.
So,
And they're actually really nice.
yeah, that's disputable, right? Because some people are like, oh, yeah, they tried this. But even in the multitude of all these options, I think there's some that are genuinely really nice.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Now, I don't drink beer. I've never drank beer, right? And I've, seen people that have said, I'm on a particular group on Facebook, for this dry January. And I think it's called Dry January. There's all this sorts of groups on Facebook groups, anyway.
Yeah.
And I remember someone posted a picture because they're on their Dry January journey and they're like, oh, they had the Guinness 0% and they actually like it.
Right.
Now, the thing is, I have never drank a real Guinness. So I'm not about to try a 0%.
Yeah, it doesn't appeal to you.
It doesn't appeal to me.
I understand.
So as much as, yes, there's so many people in this sobriety space who would try those options. There's some options I wouldn't try just because I don't get it.
Do you know what? I love that you've raised that point because 2020, when we were all in our social circles.
Yeah.
Or what did they call them? Is that what they call
lockdown? No, what did they call it?
You had like circles
yeah, I
of
know what you
people
mean.
that you
I
could
can't
hang
get the
out
word
with.
now.
So I remember there was a group of people that I would specifically invite over to my house because we had nothing else to do. We're just playing card games and, talking about what's happening in the world. And I remember we discovered non-alcoholic wine or non-alcohol, 0%. Yeah. 0% wine. And that's really nice. Yeah. So I always knew personally, I used to tell people, if I had another life, I'd probably have been like a red wine addict because I love the smell. I don't know what it is. It just really appeals to me. And then when I discovered that, your popular brands that you would find on the shelf, that they did like 0% or like 0.75%. And I tried that and that was really nice. And I really enjoyed it. And then, it opened up a whole world of like, 0% Prosecco and all of these things. And
Rosé, like
I think I even tried Recorderlig, do a 0% cider or something like that. That was quite nice. And I realized, there's variety and there are actually options, but I guess especially back in the day, you either drank or you didn't.
Yeah.
Or you drink cranberry juice, But now there's such a big market for people who are in between, or even things like dry bars and things like that. So it's very much developing and growing.
On the subject of dry bars, like, to be fair, I know that it's a very niche space, and there's not a lot of dry bars out there, to be honest, because at the end of the day, if you're in business, you're doing business to be profitable. So if you're paying like a high-end rent somewhere, how many dry drinks are you going to sell the month to make up? But interestingly, I think it's an opportunity to shout out Club Soda in the UK. Okay. For those of you that don't know, Club Soda is in Covent Garden. And I think it's probably the pioneer in that space,
Wow.
They have the bar. You can go in and buy a cocktail, but it's literally 100% non-alcoholic drinks.
Oh my God.
Right. And they also stock, the drinks in the store or shop, what do you call it? So sometimes when I'm after particular ingredients, I remember I had to do a taster session for a client a while back, and some of the ingredients they weren't like the normal drinks on my menu, and so I put my ingredients list together. They were ingredients I could get anywhere easily, But at least if you go to Club Soda, you know you would get that there. So that's one thing I like about them. I remember there was a time like I was really in search of like non-alcoholic bitters, because yes, there's all these bitters, but they still contain alcohol.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
technically speaking, right, if a drink is 0.05% or less, it's classed as non-alcoholic.
Okay.
So even if I put a dash of Angostura bitters, for example, in a drink, it's negligible, right?
Yeah.
So I could say it's non-alcoholic, but I think at some point I was like, you know what? There must be. And fast forward, and again, people might not know all those brands, and this is not like a brand sponsorship or anything.
Yeah, I mean, sponsor
Martini.
her. Sponsor her.
You know the martini like bottle,
Yeah.
the Aperol. There's actually a non-alcoholic one, and it's actually good, honestly, because sometimes when you mix like a typical Nigerian Chapman, you just want that
Yeah.
extra
It needs a,
thing that it's missing.
like,
So,
yeah.
and there's some brands that I've discovered myself, and just through exploring that I'm like, I'm actually happy with this. There's another brand in the US, I think they called All the Bitters. And again, their brand was just basically, they saw the space in the market. There's not a lot of bitters. And they created like, I think, a range of bitters. So you've got like orange bitters and, your typical, like all sorts, So for me, I find the space interesting and educating. Yeah, and as much as I might not go as far as trying the non-alcoholic beer, I play around with things like the bitters, the spirits, the gins, and recently, I don't know if you saw the news. Well, to be fair, I feel like a lot of this entire, people who were not in my space don't know it. Exactly.
This is why
Lewis Hamilton launched a non-alcoholic tequila brand.
Ooh.
Honestly, I'm like, that is huge. And I don't remember the name of the brand.
Yeah, because
but
he stopped drinking, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think he's vegan as well. So I don't know the name of that. It doesn't stick on.
That's why.
But the fact that he worked with like a big someone in the industry and all of that, they created this brand and he's promoting it. It just tells me like the future is like sober, right?
Oh, that's a hashtag.
The future is sober. But the stats actually support it, because over the years, the number of sort of like younger generation who are cutting down on alcohol has continued to increase. So with people cutting down and doing dry January, damp January, damp January is basically, like dry is like no alcohol this
damp
month.
Is like you're cutting down, but
damp is like,
out.
What? I'm not like, I can't stop alcohol just yet.
Okay.
However, in this month of January, I'm going to test the waters and maybe see if I can cut down. So if I normally have, I don't know, this number of units a week, I'm going to try and cut down, or maybe I'll try and look at all the non-alcoholic alternatives. And I think it's a good way, because people can then explore those options, because if you didn't know those options existed, you probably won't be interested. So if you're like a wine person, right? Some women are like, they can't do without their red wine. So it takes a lot of convincing to tell the person to stop drinking red wine.
Yeah, it's a lot. But you mentioned something about, the percentage of people drinking going down and things like that.
Even smoking with apparently
No,
no,
that's because people are vaping. It's just
yeah, but also the
shisha.
message behind this brand,
Okay.
from what I understand, sort of like back in the day, when they were advertising like cigarettes and things, the way they sold them, there was the
Right.
appeal to it.
Yes.
Now
That's
you
what
cannot
they're
put a
saying.
branding of, you literally put on the
Smoking
cigarette pack,
kills.
it kills.
They're not allowed
And there's
to
also
make it
the
look-
element
yeah.
of the whole message from, the NHS and everything. So there's that education part that is gradually making people cut down. And also bear in mind, the Gen Z are very, what's the word now? Vain to some extent, right?
Okay, so
People
our
want to look
addiction.
good. So the whole thing of fitness, going to the gym
yes.
for 5 times a week and all of those things. So
Right.
consciously and subconsciously, these people are also in many cases eat healthy. In many cases, I'm not saying in all cases. I know people who go to the gym who don't eat healthy. So there's that awareness of, okay, we want to live better, do better. And gradually, I think that's why you notice in this generation as well, there's that increase in veganism,
Yeah.
all of those things. So
I think Dr. Sebi and all of the other guys that have
champion the messages, yeah.
It's really interesting, because on one side, when you look at something like veganism, you see that, and I know I'm deviating ever so slightly, but when you look at veganism, you have two kinds. You have vegans who eat everything soya, everything pre-made fake chicken, fake burgers, the whole thing. And then you have vegans who actually eat vegetables, because I think there's a massive difference, because the whole point of veganism is to live as a healthier, sustainable lifestyle that impacts everything from the way you dress to what you put in your hair, everything. And then you kind of have people who don't want to eat meat as much, just want to cut back. But this is why sometimes the statistics don't make sense, because they're telling us that global warming is increasing, but people are reducing the amount of cows they're eating. I don't know. Yeah, and they say that cows produce methane because they're being farmed to,
Yeah, I think to be fair, the subjects, one of my friends or colleagues in the industry was actually on the podcast, and we she's vegan. She doesn't drink as well. So, and we were kind of touched on that subject. And to be fair, there's like a wide range of, even within veganism, like I think for herself, now you might have some people who, for example, would not wear leather, they wouldn't go near anything.
It's a spectrum, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's the word, the spectrum, right? And you might have someone that might be comfortable to use a moisturizer that has collagen that's derived from animal.
I believe in collagen because we need to stay looking young.
And then you might have someone that wouldn't put a moisturizer or hand cream if it had anything that was derived, any derivative at all, from an animal.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of it's kind of an interesting topic. But yeah, I know, I'm a meat eater and I love meat.
Yeah.
I love fish.
I like chicken.
So I don't see that in my future.
But then I guess, when it comes to sobriety and it becoming more popular in the West and things like that, how have you found this kind of space in places like Nigeria, Africa?
Oh.
Because drinking it's an interesting culture around drinking. It's kind of a thing that older senior men do, they drink like hard liquor, like brown stuff.
I think it would take a while, but we will catch up. This is not just Nigeria. This is like not just Africa as well, the developing countries. Okay. I think it's a developing countries thing, I think it would take a while, but I think we'll catch up, right? Because I remember when some time back, I don't know, it was on YouTube, I saw someone that was in Nigeria, had a Nigerian vegan channel. Yeah. And I was like, interesting. Like, do you really have an audience for this? Because Nigerians, I know, love their meats. Like, if you give someone food without meat, it's an offense. So how do you explain to someone? Exactly. And same thing with like alcohol. It's like, yes, I'd say in the North, it wasn't as, I wouldn't say it's not popular. It's just that thing of, because of the religious element of the Northerners being Muslims and things, and not that they don't drink, but for the most part, like, it's not a norm for you if you're the religious, typical Muslim girl, right? Unlike Christianity, whereby it's, the subject of drinking it's very relative in Christianity, right? There's some Christians that believe that, it's absolutely fine to drink as long as you don't get drunk. So it's very, there's a spectrum when it comes to drinking with Christianity. But with Muslims, it's clear that they shouldn't be drinking. Like, they're not allowed. If they are, they're just enjoying and living their best lives on their own terms, right? Yeah. So that's very clear, So I think with time, though, with the education, because if we think about even all this new waves of trends that have caught up with people, it's because there's someone championing them. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. So the whole message of veganism, the whole message of and again, some of them are backed with stats, right? Maybe the whole like global warming and all of that. And then you have all this Greenpeace societies, all this, yes, I get the stats on some of them, but in other ways, it's about the message. Now, also, let's go back to COVID. I know we've digressed a lot, but when the whole message of stay at home, do this, do that, the more we heard that message being repeated, the more people were more inclined to do them. Oh, wash your hands. Even children knew at that time to wash their hands, So all those campaigns, the same way you'd do a marketing campaign, I think with the culture change, there has to be that sort of campaign
Yeah.
subconsciously. Now, it doesn't mean that you have an ambassador, but it might just be that gradually, oh, maybe there might be a first non-alcoholic bar in Lagos, and that might be a thing.
Right.
And then people might begin to say, oh, have you heard of this bar? Oh, it's interesting. And then the curiosity might then begin to educate people. Now, of course, I did mention the UK, we have club soda, and there are few of them. I think in America, there's a Listen Bar. You know, now, yes, it's not a popular opinion, but gradually, these businesses are growing, they're evolving. And for me, if you ask me if I had a blank check, of course, it would be nice to have a non-alcoholic bar in Lagos. Because I know, as far as I'm aware right now, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Right?
So,
and you know, with Nigerians, like when there's that thing whereby there's this thing that is new, it's different, and they feel like they get good value for their money. You educate them. You're not just selling drinks to them. You're educating them about the options and all of those things. They're more likely gradually. But the only thing is that because of the way Nigeria is an economy and everything, you probably might have to start from the high end. And when they see their celebrities, all holding a bottle of non-alcoholic gin and things, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then they might catch up with the
You're very
message.
right.
Yeah. But I think we're far.
It's a journey.
Yeah. We're far off
Yeah.
from that. But it will be quite interesting to see that change happen in our lifetimes, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I think it will. We're getting there, but yeah.
What do they call them? Gen Alpha? The people that are born in like anytime from 2010 onwards, they call them the alphas. So hopefully, maybe. Not even Gen Z.
Okay. All right. So I was going to ask you, now with all this, many things that you do, being a boss lady, you do a lot of things. So let me not go back into that. Right? What is your self-care routine? Like, what do you do to recharge and reset and, just...
Do you know what? My initial response is I don't have one. But actually, when I think a little deeper, I love Saturdays where I don't have to do anything. Like, don't leave my house, just literally food prep and watch K-drama. I recently got into K-drama. I used to mock people like, oh, what's this K-drama thing?
I know.
But I actually recently got into it.
Interesting.
They're very. Do you know why people like it?
It's just all those trends that, like, to be fair, I think I can relate. I have never. The thing is, when it comes to habits, right? I try not to start a habit because I'm like, once I start, I get into it all in.
Right.
Yeah. So I haven't gone as far yet. However, there's some weird audiobooks that I recently found, like some audiobook app where they have all these fiction stories that sound like those. You can literally tell what the story is gonna. There's always like maybe someone cheating, or there's someone who's got this unassuming personality, or like they are like a rich daughter of someone, and then nobody knows their identity. And I'm like, why are you guys always hiding your identities? Like,
no,
it annoys me.
I know those stories.
Those stories, like, it annoys me, and I'm like, why am I even listening to it? At some point, I was like, you know what? I'm done with this app. I deleted it. But yeah, carry on.
I mean, I think I just enjoy kind of stillness and not doing much, and then I also love creating content. So that I think I've had a love-hate relationship with my YouTube channel for a while. Because do you know what? I love making content and creating moments and recording stuff, because I imagine that one day it can go in a documentary. You know how like Beyonce has her doc content. I love that. But on the other side, I don't like thinking about the science of, how do I get more views? That's not really the reason why I share is because I enjoy it and I like adding value. So it comes from that place. It comes from a creative space rather than a driving viewers kind of point of view. But I like doing that. I like creating content and thinking about how to create content.
But that's still work. You haven't told me what. That's still some. So basically, sleep. I take it that okay, I'll take that.
And food prep because I don't really like cooking.
Yeah, but cooking is work.
It especially Nigerian food. People actually don't realize that standing in the kitchen for 4 hours doesn't feel productive to me. So I would rather just cook in bulk and get it out of the way because
Yeah. But
I like the end, but I don't really like it.
the process.
Yeah.
Because for me, I feel cooking is, yeah,
work.
it is work. Particularly if you're trying to, like yesterday, I literally from after church, I spent most of my time in the kitchen because I was like, okay. And again, this is when I'm trying to be like healthy, right?
Right.
When I'm not trying to be healthy, trust me, like it doesn't take long to do like we call it concoction spaghetti in Nigeria. Literally, that's quick. Yeah, or even like jollof rice or fried rice, like the basic staple Nigerian household foods. But I'm trying to make like some healthy pepper soup, fish soup, or whatever. Yesterday was like a chicken breast thing I was making sauce. Sometimes I just feel like it takes it's quicker to cook,
Yeah.
but the whole just trying to organize it, I feel it's
That's what it is.
yeah.
It's because
And you can't batch cook them as much as you would jollof rice.
True.
Yeah.
And also when you're thinking about different options, because you're not going to eat the same meal for an entire week, or some people do.
I
don't.
could in my when I'm not eating healthy, trust me. Once I have two options of foods, I'm happy to eat it every single day for the
Really?
honestly, I'm happy to eat
I can only do
rice
that
beans,
with
rice
rice.
beans every
I can't do rice and beans every day.
every other day.
It would have to be different types of rice, but I can eat rice from Monday to Sunday. But it has to be white rice, jollof rice, concoction rice, right? It has to be.
The healthy part of me is now trying to like introduce more variety.
Yeah.
So let's see how long that lasts. Okay.
Have fun.
All right. So I'll take it. And this is like me doing a checklist for you in my mind. In my brain's like, okay, your only relaxation so far is sleep.
Yeah. I mean, sleep and not doing anything.
Anything? Okay, just chilling. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And K-drama.
okay. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right. So have you got any final words for our audience?
Oh. Do you know what? I've been thinking about what actually makes people productive. And I've learned that it comes from a place of courage and discipline. And I was listening to a podcast.
We need to like blow the second word you said, discipline.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's like
Make it big.
make it like enlarge it. Yeah.
And I learned this, right? So I was listening to a man called Erwin McManus, and he was talking on a podcast, and he was talking about the difference between confidence built from your gifts and your talents and confidence built from consistency and discipline. The difference is that when your gifts and your talents stop giving you notoriety or fame, or you're no longer validated for those things, you kind of have an identity crisis because you don't understand who you are outside of your gifts and your talents and your abilities. But if you develop confidence from the place of having a discipline, from having a strong work ethic and things like that, those are things that can't really be shifted regardless of what happens. Even if you lose a title, the confidence remains because it comes from your understanding of your ability, the fact that you have a track record of, okay, I can do my 10,000 hours and become an expert regardless of what industry it is. And you can take that and replicate it across whatever it is that you're focusing on. So I found that really interesting because when you're now building yourself up and moving forward, the only way you're going to do that is if you are courageous and decide to be disciplined. That you can't rely, there's only so much that you can do to rely on your natural abilities, and even that will take you so far. So yeah, that's something that I've learned recently, and I love that.
take that message as for me, honestly, because I think discipline, for me, I think discipline is that part. It's the key missing part in a lot of our lives, and this is not just in one aspect. In other aspects, like I think discipline. I could have the courage to start something, but do I have the courage and the discipline to see it through to the end? Right. And I could have the courage, like, oh yeah, start of the year, going back to the gym. But it's about the discipline, honestly. And I think that's one message I have for myself. It's about the actions, right? There's that start of the year vibe where people are like, oh, I want to do that, I want to do that.
Yeah,
but
resolutions.
I don't like
things.
in spite of the goals, in spite of the aspirations, what am I doing every single day? You know, I think for me, my message to myself is action, action, like just getting things done, you know, that discipline to do it, even if I don't feel like it, right? And yeah, I think I've so far so good. I think I know it's too early in the year to say. I feel like at least in some areas, maybe some areas obviously still struggling, but if I could apply, if I had a magic wand and I could apply the discipline to all areas of my life, oh my God, like
everybody
I'll be
would just
balling.
max out. I agree, and I think sometimes it's not about the end, it's about what it's teaching you and who you're becoming in the process. And I feel like, especially in my earlier years, I used to get really frustrated. Like, I need to understand this so I can do X, Y, and Z. And then I think I just learning and failing woefully in certain things. I think I just discovered that, oh, okay, the journey is actually about how it's training you, the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It's been an amazing conversation.
Thank you for
We could go
having
on
me.
and on and on. And honestly, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for coming
you.
all the way to be here with us today. And yeah, thank you to our listeners. And you know, once again, it's the Sleep and Grow with Wiki podcast, and we hope to bring you more inspirational content. And of course, discussions on sobriety as well, which is sort of like the message I'm trying to preach. So until next time, we'll see you guys again.
Bye.
Bye.